We are live, I guess. Hopefully, someone in the chat can confirm because you cannot trust, all the streaming platforms that we have nowadays. I guess we are live. It's 14 seconds. So, hi all. Welcome to the sixth episode of the Game Week Navigators. I'm Aditya and I have Sankalp with me, and we're going to talk about Arsenal. We're going to cover Arsenal in depth, looking at their assets, their performances last season, their preseason games so far, and what we can expect from them in this upcoming season and in the Community Shield. But before we start, please do drop us a like and subscribe and all the typical YouTube things. But I will not get into that. So, Sankalp, how are you doing?
Good, good. Looking forward to the Community Shield match now because I think we are in August now, right? So the FPL feeling has started growing even stronger now. Teams are getting finalized more or less. I don't want to look at that app anymore. I think I have enough drafts. But unfortunately, last minute surprises are coming, right? Yesterday we got news that Gabriel Jesus has picked up a minor injury. Right today morning we had Nkuku hobble off the pitch. Right, so you never know. Right, maybe we have to keep creating drafts till the end of the week. But almost there. Right, really excited for the season football wise because I'm tired of thinking purely FPL. I want to see football matches now.
Yes, I mean, when we did the first stream, when the game got launched, I just said that time straight away that tinkering is fun, but there's no point tinkering because what the last draft you do and your first draft is going to be completely different, and there's going to be a lot of changes. Anyways, that being
Yeah.
said, let's move on to what will be our talking points for this particular stream or episode. So we're going to start with looking at how Arsenal played last season, few key numbers here and there to justify their picks. Then we'll look at their exciting, probably an excellent transfer window so far. Then we look at the first 8 game weeks, the fixtures. Obviously, they're all favorable games. Then we'll compare some interesting numbers, that is per 90 metric of the four key spoken Arsenal attackers. Then we'll look into an interesting segment that Sankalp has picked, is how Arsenal probably transitioned, changed their formation and the way they structured from Wolves to Wolves. That's from the November game till the end of the season. And the second last thing is that we're going to look at how Arsenal played in the preseason game, particularly against Barcelona. And then we'll cover a few of the key burning questions with regards to Arsenal. So, with that being said, let's move on straight away to few of the key numbers. So, I'll let Sankalp take us all through this.
Yeah, last season obviously was a very, very good season for us. Getting into it, I don't think anyone expected we'll be dominating and we'll be leading the league for so long. Right, we did, but obviously we faltered off at the end. Just wanted to have a quick look at the numbers. Right, last season Arsenal scored 88 goals, which is I think, which was one of the most goals that we scored. I think in the open era of league. Right, 53 of which were scored at home, 35 away. Right, and that's very key thing because we'll come back to this when we look at the fixtures and all. Right, but 53 of our 88 goals came back home, and it's a stark difference, only 35 away. But if you look at the goals conceded, the number of goals that we scored at home came at a price, right? We went forward a lot, we took a lot of risks, and that also ensured that we considered 25 goals at home, and we are, I think, around the top 10 or just after bottom 10 when it comes to the goals considered at home. But we considered only 18 goals away, and we were the best side away. Most defensive side away, we considered only 18 goals. I think City considered 19, which is one more than us, and then it was United, right? So fairly contrasting numbers when you compare home and away, right? So first look, and if you expect things to remain the same, right? Home Arsenal attack and away Arsenal defense is what comes to my mind. Right, we don't know whether things will continue the same way, but that's the first look right from these numbers. If you look at XG, it was around 72. I picked up these numbers from Understat, so there might be some slight changes from website to website, but 72 was our XG and we scored 88 goals. So there's a lot of discussion around a bit of overperformance that came from Arsenal assets, right, which is there for us to see. Uh, if you look at the X points, as again 72 odd points, while we had around 85 points. But I was looking at the table, even X points wise, we were safe into the second place as well, right? So it's not like the position would have varied, but I think Arsenal did score a bit more than was expected. Right. If you look at the goal scorers, Martin Odegaard with 15 goals, a lot of it came from out of the box, and he was, I think, five. He exceeded his XG by around 5 goals, five, and one of the major overperformers when it came to last season. If you look at Gabriel Martinelli, he had an amazing season with 15 goals, and he has, I think, the least minutes when you compare with most of the attackers. Right, when you compare with Saka as well as Odegaard, but really strong performance. Saka came up with 11 assists from a, I think, 7 odd XA. Right? So his XG was slight overperformance, but XA was strong overperformance. Then you look at minutes, right? So Ramsdale and Gabriel were very clearly the common players who played almost like all the games for us last season and almost all the minutes. But Saka was the third most, and when it comes to attackers, he played the most minutes. Gabriel Jesus has the accumulated the highest XG despite missing out almost 3 months of football, and Odegaard, while might not be leading in assist, had the highest XA. Right. So in general, this is how things look for me. Any takeaways from your side, Aditya, looking at these numbers? Anything that you are thinking?
Well, last season we did see that Arsenal were very much attacking more towards the right. That's pretty obvious with Saka, and that's what I think we'll continue to see. Arsenal
Okay.
defended well. We had a lot of people go for. I think Ben White was 4.5, and he was giving us chunk of points for the value. And
Second highest defender, I think, FPL
yeah,
wise.
and then obviously Mahrez was very was dominant with his set piece abilities. So more or less, I think Arsenal did justify a few of their numbers, which is as expected, and more or less they gave a great charge to City in terms of the title. They made them work towards the end, and I think this season is going to be something interesting to watch from Arsenal as well with regards to even the other teams. So it's going to be a good season to watch.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, of course, a lot of transfer news has happened, a lot of transfer drama has happened in the summer, right? But something that we should look forward to. I think a lot is coming ahead of us this season, right? So, next, let's move on to the next slide. And what we have is the transfer window, right? So we had Kai Havertz who joined us surprisingly, right? Out of the blue, suddenly we got linked. None of us Arsenal fans could believe it. We were like, hey, these are just rumors. And then suddenly we saw, okay, it's right. We were actually in for Kai Havertz. And Kai Havertz has picked up a different role for us in this. I think is expected to pick up a different role for us this season, and we will get into it in detail when we look at formations, etc. But he's picking up that Zaka role, right? And he's playing as a much more advanced player. He's running a lot into the box. He's interchanging positions with the left side winger. So, looking at him in the preseason, at least now I have a sense as to why we went for him. Right, the success of it, which we have to determine at the end of I think a season. But the reason, the logic is now coming up, at least to Arsenal fans. They understand why we went for Kai Havertz, right? And he came out fairly expensive. I think it was around 65 million deal, including bonuses, etc. Right. The second name obviously was extremely long saga. With West Ham. At one point in time, City jumped in, and most Arsenal fans, including myself, had given up. But very excited to see him in Arsenal colours. I think a British record deal, 105 million pounds. So a lot of things are expected from him. Let's see how we integrate him, because moving from West Ham to Arsenal is a huge change, right? Not only the stature of the club, what we are running for, etc., but also from a style of football point of view, right? So it's going to be interesting to see how Declan Rice is going to change himself. You also have to see where he gets played, and then let's see whether he is able to bring up those same leadership qualities that was expected from him at West Ham, right? Last but not the least, a player that I'm extremely excited about is Julian Timber, who's within the preseason, I think 2-3 games only, he has made Arsenal fans his fans. Right? Julian Timber is extremely versatile fullback. He can play also as an additional centre back, right? Young, fairly pacey. I was surprised to see his physicality, the way he was fending off Rafinha in the Barcelona match. So three good transfers that we have done so far, and I'm happy to see them here. Right? What are your takes, Aditya, when it comes to these players?
Yeah, I mean, like, I especially like two of the names that you guys have signed. First thing before I go to that, if people are wondering why my camera is a bit tilted, yes, I have some issue with my camera, so hence it is more tilted this way. So please adjust just for this one stream. By next stream, it should be fine, but that's some problem, so I tilted it. Anyways, coming back to the transfer window of Arsenal, I mean, Havertz is something more or less a tactical signing. The way he's going to play is something that we need to watch. So I'm not going to discuss more on that because until we see which role he's assigned to play, we cannot comment. But overall, he's a good player. We know about him. Other than Rice is like, I mean, see, I being a Man United fan, we have watched few of the signings here, very in detail because they were also linked with us over the last few seasons. Rice has been
Yeah,
over the past few seasons always been linked. We knew how well of a midfielder he is in terms of his passing abilities, in terms of the way he can control as well as defend. So it's going to be interesting to see how they play Rice alongside with whom. That is more important. And once I think Arteta cracks that out and he figures his best midfield, then naturally I think Rice will start playing well. And once Rice plays well, Arsenal's defense will play well, and then their attack. So that's how it's going to improve any team. So that's going to be interesting to watch. Yuri Timber is probably United fans have been seeing him for the last 2 years. We've been
yeah,
always been linked a possible sort of replacement to our former captain and all those transfer rumors here, and that didn't happen. But one thing that I mean, in terms of Ajax and Ten Hag's point of view, was that he's versatile. Dutch players are always versatile. At any point of time, they're always ready to play in any position that will help their team. So he's someone who can play as well in the right back as well as he's a proper centre back. And I think Arsenal fans are building up and calling him the build-up machine and all the other things. I mean, like, it's something we want to watch, but he's a good player. So
yeah,
Arsenal have
yeah.
got probably three solid players that will improve their team, and we'll have to see how well they play.
Perfect, perfect. Let's get into the next slide, I think. Right. Uh, why are we talking Arsenal, right? A lot of Arsenal talk has happened during this. Once FPL declared the fixtures, right? It's not just because of the performance last season, because a lot of people, at least not the Arsenal fans, right, have still have question mark whether Arsenal can replicate the same, especially after a lot of transfers, a lot of changes to the squad, right? But the best reason I think we are having this discussion is because of the fixtures, right? Uh, Most common wildcard that I see across seasons is game week 3, game week 4, right? People who just jump into and start making the changes. And if you look at the first three fixtures for Arsenal, even first four fixtures, if you include United as well, right? We have three home games. And this is where I was talking about, Arsenal scoring 53 of their 88 goals at home, right? It's because how strong we were from an attacking point of view at home. The fact that we are playing Nottingham Forest at home, Crystal Palace away remains a tricky fixture, I have to accept. But again, Fulham at home, and Fulham are not really doing so well in the transfer market. They are about to perhaps about to lose out on the striker Mitrovic. Right? We are still not sure. There's a lot of drama going on, but a lot of instability is there in the club. Right, so it's a fixture that a lot of people want to target. And then United at home, while obviously it will be a strong, it will be a very difficult fixture. We have seen in the preseason it's not going to be easy, right? Very physical, in fact. But at the end of the day, it's a home game, and I expect goals from it, right? And after that, also, if you look at the next three fixtures, it's Everton away. Last season, we had some issues there. Then it's Tottenham at home. Generally, it's a high scoring game at home. And then it's Bournemouth away. Again, relatively easier fixtures, right? Game week 8 is going to be the kind of first of the title decided matches, right? 6 pointer matches where we are going to play City at home, right? So uh, good fixtures, I would say. Even if you have United and Spurs at home in the first 8, ideally these are high scoring matches, and I expect goals to come, right? Win or loss, concede or not, but I expect goals to come, right? What is your take as well, Aditya? Is there any match that you are looking forward to apart from the United one?
So I didn't get unmuted. There was some delay. I think now you'll be able to hear me. So yeah, I mean the fixture run looks great up till game week 8, and I think the least to say is that doubling up is the bare minimum people are going to do. So that's a no-brainer. I think the fixtures look great, and we have the set and forget picks from Arsenal at the moment. More or less, at least two out of the three are like sort of in that category. The games look good, so I don't have any like specific game. Obviously, United won. Yeah, that's a. I would beg to differ. I'm not going to uh, what you can say jinx and hype up my club at this point, because no, we have to stay grounded. We should not have a lot of expectations at the start. Things go bad also. So anyways, obviously that's one game, and the North London derby is obviously one, and then City. So those are probably three good games of those five. So uh, pretty much should get the league up to speed by then. We'll know who's who. I mean, who ends up starting well, because it's a game of phases. So it's going to be very interesting to see. But yeah, overall they have great games, great fixtures. So I think there's nothing a lot to complain.
Correct, correct, correct. I mean, FPL point of view, right? And since we are talking about the fixtures, I think one thing we missed mentioning is the pricing this season, right? 200 points, 212 points from Odegaard, still priced at 8.5 million. Saka crossed 200 points at 8.5 million. Martinelli was just missed out on 200 points because of an injury. He's priced at 8 million, right? The pricing did not improve as much as I think most FPL managers expected it to happen at the beginning of the season. And that adds on to the charisma of Arsenal assets, right? Because you know that you are getting them cheap, and if they are able to replicate anything closer to last season as well, it's still a very, very good deal from a long term point of view. Short term, obviously, we have the fixtures to at least try and attack uh, right from the start. Right now, let's get on to the next slide. What do we have next? Yeah. So
Your price and minutes.
yes. So we have been talking so much about Arsenal attackers, right? Where to go? I think most of the questions that we have coming from FPL managers this season is where to go. Who should we go for? Right? Saka is the most nailed. Odegaard is playing a bit deeper. Martinelli X minutes. Jesus now has an injury, which surprised us, right? So a lot of questions in and around. So who's the best attacker? And what I wanted to do is just look at last season, right? Obviously, this season the dynamics will change a bit, and we'll discuss it in our last slide. But I want to look at last slide and last season and the numbers, key metrics, right? I looked at per 90 metrics because there's a lot of variance. Some people have played 90 minutes, some people have played a lot of matches. If you look at minutes, Saka has the maximum minutes, and then you have Odegaard, and then Martinelli, and then Jesus, right? So per 90 minutes metric will give us the best indicator as to who's standing out. I took a lot of attacking metrics, right? So if you look at the image in front of you, you have shots in the box, you have shots on target, you have big chances. You also have XG, goals, key passes, XA, as well as X points, as well as BPS, right, as a metric, right, and bonus overall, and the points, right? So all these metrics, what I did was basically rank the four attacking assets we have. I've not taken Havertz because Havertz was playing in a completely different system, did not make sense. And Trossard obviously played just half a season with us. I mean, makes sense. So just took this four, ranked them. If you look at Green is the person who was the first in that metric. Orange is the person who came second, and yellow is the person who just came third, right? Just kept ranking it, right? And the first thing that came to my mind was Martinelli, right? If you look at Martinelli's metric, it is colored completely end to end, except the assist, right? All other metrics, he is colored end to end, right? Assist also, he's missing out by slightly, right? He's 0.16 per 90 and Odegaard is zero point 0.2 per 90. It's not a huge difference, but he's lighting up so well primarily because he's such an explosive asset, right? Even if his minutes are less, and granted his X minutes is something that we have to talk about, but look at the fact that he will give you everything, right? He's there on shots in the box, right? Shots on target, he's second. If you look at shot in the box, he's second. He's getting big chances. He's second. He got the maximum amount of big chances from the three attacking players apart from Jesus. Right. So and XA he was leading the metric in fact, right? And if you look at points per 90, he actually got the maximum points per 90. So extremely explosive asset, and the fact that he comes in at 0.5 million cheaper than the other guys, right? He, as a midfielder, he comes on as 8 million midfielder, and Jesus also 8 million forward, right? That makes it kind of a no-brainer for me, because even if there's minutes risk, I feel the explosiveness will kind of compensate for it, right? And that was my first thoughts. The other thought looking at the metric was, when you look at someone like Odegaard, right? What surprises you is he's taking the second most shots in the shot attempts last season, right? This despite the fact that Martinelli and Saka obviously played a bit more advanced compared to Odegaard. But when you look at shot on target, he's third. When you look at shot in the box, he's the last. So basically, what happened last season was he was taking a lot of shots outside the box, and he was converting them as well. And this is actually the reason I think we see a lot of difference with respect to his XG and goals, right? Because of the distance, the XG model obviously uh, rates those shots at a lower value, and the fact that Odegaard kept converting them meant that he was overperforming his XG by a big margin. Right? Can he replicate it? It will be interesting to see. I also have my doubts whether it's sustainable. Taking such a large number of shots outside the box and converting good amount of them, because not every season you have a midfielder scoring 15 goals a season without penalties, right? So it's going to be something interesting. And one more thing that the metric really made me think was Saka, Bukayo Saka. Right? As Arsenal fans, we have our bias towards Bukayo Saka. He's an academic product. He's come up within the system. He's moved around positions, finally made right wing his own. And he takes penalties as well, even if he misses a couple of them. Right? But the fact that from when it comes to the metrics point of view, right? So if you see there are a lot of whites in his metric, right? A lot of whites, a lot of yellows, which basically means he's not even no, he's not standing out from a metric point of view. And if you look at his points per 90, he was actually the third. He was behind both Martinelli and as well as Odegaard last season. It's just that his minutes compensated it. So it's something to think about. When the points when the prices came out, the first thought in my mind was Bukayo Saka is going to be the guy I will start with. I think more or less he was my first pick when I started making my first draft. But this does make you think: can he replicate it? Is there a strong overperformance? Right? Should we think more? Should we go somewhere else? Is Odegaard being overlooked? A lot of questions which come from it. The last is Gabriel Jesus, fairly strong. If you see his anything with respect to shooting, he stands out. He's like the top guy there. But unfortunately, he did not convert. He was the one of those guys who underperformed his XG, and that led to his low performance. Right. And one thing I missed talking about Odegaard is perhaps his BPS as well as bonus. He really stands out. So if Odegaard gets you an assist, if he gets you a goal, right, there's strong probability that he's going to be the guy with those 3 bonus points, because he's kind of a link between the midfield as well, defense and attack. Right, he's the guy who links everything, and that is perhaps one reason his points gets magnified. Even if he does not give you 2 assists, he gives you 1 assist, he'll still be almost equivalent to a guy who gives you 2 assists in the game, right? So that's interesting, right? Anything from your side, Aditya? Any observations?
I mean, at the start of last season, Gabriel Jesus was like the most owned forward until Haaland
Yeah.
like scored a brace, and then the train just left the station so fast. So we could see the way Martinelli was positioning himself, wherein he was going more inside and Jesus was dropping in deep to allow others to move in and all. And we could see how important he was, I mean, Gabriel Jesus, and unfortunately, he might be out maybe for a game or two. I think that's what we are kind of expecting now. And probably that has annoyed a lot of managers who are tinkering with him in the squad. Obviously, when Nkunku one is kind
Including
of
me.
disappointing. Yeah. So, I mean, based on the list that is up on the screen, two names were pretty much stand out for everyone. That was Bukayo Saka and Jesus. Bukayo Saka was purely because he's the talisman. He's going to take the bench. He's going to be more or less involved. And Arsenal attack generally is more favorable to from the right side. Now with Gabriel Jesus probably out for that's why a game or two. Obviously, we can't start with him. So the dilemma of switching to which is probably or who is probably the next best attacker is one discussion that most of us will be having in a few days until the season starts. So, what
Of
do you think
course.
about Martinelli? Because I mean, Trossard also could like play as in the front three, or maybe Martinelli is exactly. I've seen that Martinelli has not played a lot of games the preseason, so it's
Yeah.
been Trossard who has been playing more of minutes. But probably I think Arteta definitely favors Martinelli more than Trossard.
Yeah.
But what do you think? What will happen? Like, is there a chance like Havertz might go in the front three? I'm just throwing it up. What might
Yeah.
happen?
Yeah. I think from a Havertz point of view, right, we didn't speak about him so far. We will speak about him in detail when we speak about preseason match. But one thing that I've seen across preseason was more or less in every serious match that we played, Havertz took that LCM position, that Xhaka position, right? So Arteta gave him a long run. Even if there were matches he was not doing that well, he continued playing him. Even United match, I remember a lot of players came off, but Havertz continued for a longer time. He played a lot more minutes in that position. So basically, it feels like Arteta wants him to bed into that role and get used to that role because it's a different role. Right? Even in Germany, he's played that number 10 position, but he's not picked up directly that LCM 8%, which requires him to go up and down. Right? Trossard has been phenomenal, and Trossard has been phenomenal in the Martinelli role, in the left wing role. Right? So obviously there is competition, right? With Jesus injured, I think it makes things a bit easier for us. My first thought yesterday was, hey, I think at least we know Martinelli starts, because my thought is Trossard will be the guy who will be starting in the forward role, primarily because of his mobility, right? Eddie Nketiah started yesterday in the Emirates Cup match, and he played really well. He scored the only goal from our side, and he played really well. But at the same time, I think a lot of first guys did sit down yesterday, and the community shield should make things a bit cleaner for me. I think we'll get as close to the first XI as we can from the community shield, even if it's for lesser minutes, right? So that would make things clearer. But my thought now is, at least for the first 2 weeks, Martinelli starts. Martinelli played 45 minutes yesterday, and I think he looked good. He started off somewhere like 70%, 80%, but as the half progressed, I think he was our best attacker in yesterday's game. So if Gabriel Martinelli is fit, he's completely on song, right? He's the starter for me, no questions asked. But the fact is that Martinelli is also coming back from injury at the end of last season, which made him miss some minutes. And Trossard is in really good form. So there is some question for sure. Uh, I think with certainty, we'll only be able to say after the Carling Cup match. As of now, I am fairly certain. I am not completely certain, but fairly certain that he is going to be our left wing guy and Trossard is going to be a center forward, at least for the first two matches. Right?
Yes, I think that kind of answers a rough, or probably gives us a rough idea of the predicted 11, maybe for the next few
Correct,
games.
correct.
But
Yes.
so we'll move on to what were the actual formation changes, or maybe a
Yes.
slight tweak in play that Sankal probably observed because I have no clue. So I'm going to basically just let him cover the next segment that's from Wolves to Wolves.
Yep. So this segment is called From Wolves to Wolves because, funnily, just before the World Cup, our last match was against Wolves, which was away match, and we won it 2-0. Right, it was away match, and till then we were seeing only one formation, 4-3-3. Right, fairly certain all of these guys were playing regularly. This was at the top. You had Saka on the right, Martinelli on the left. We did not have Trossard yet, who came during the winter. That Zaka was playing, Odegaard was playing deep. And if you see in that match, Odegaard actually scored two goals. Right. And you had Zinchenko, Saliba, Gabriel, as well as Benjamin. Right. So fairly solid lineup. If you look at the average touches, right? Average touches. If you see on the right, the graph, it shows a bit on the average touches. One thing which is very interesting to see is the advancement of Bukayo Saka, right? So most of the matches that you see, you will see that Bukayo Saka is the most forward asset for us. and that further adds to the enigma, or further adds to the image that Bukayo Saka is the right man, right? Because he's the furthest man up front, right? Next up is Gabriel Martinelli. You see, Jesus is actually pretty deep in the middle, and there's a faint Zaka number on top of him. And this is also something I wanted to talk about, because when we talk about Havertz, and we have one of the questions from Sivanand, right? Is Havertz a better option than Martinelli without Jesus? I don't know without Jesus, but I know with Jesus, he's actually a very good option, because if you look at this movement, right? Zaka was playing fairly advanced in most of the matches last season. He was almost playing as a second striker, right? So I feel there's going to be a lot of sync between Jesus and Havertz. Not really immediately, right? It's not magic, so it'll take some time for that chemistry to come. But over the season, I think Havertz is going to benefit a lot out of Gabriel Jesus, and that also talks a bit on Martinelli, because last season Martinelli was the guy who was running in, Jesus was the guy who was coming out, and Martinelli was so much influential with those rotations. Now, what is going to happen is we'll have to see how that entire three people, entire triangle works, because it might also happen that Havers goes in rather than Martinelli, right? And he benefits a lot. Or you have a lot of second balls, which comes to Havers is going to get all the high balls, and then you have Jesus taking up the second ball. So a lot of influence can come out of this person. What we also have to see is Thomas Partey, right? Is he going to the first starter, right? Where does Declan Rice come in? Because he's our record signing and he's expected to start, if not immediately, but then in first 3-4 matches, right? Where does that leave Partey, right? And this is where our second graph will help us, right, to think what is another possible uh, you know formation for us, right? So this is the last match. I'm sorry for the inverted graph, but this is what I got from SofaScore. Right, so if you look at the last match for us in Emirates, uh, before I get into it, obviously something that we saw in the second half of the season was Brighton under RDZ was extremely, extremely good, and they have such a nice build up from the back. I think one of the best in the league, including three at the back, right? And we saw City move into that formation, I think some part of the second season, and that really helped them. And in the last match, we saw Arteta try it out. Now, I think the match before that was Nottingham Forest away, which we lost. A lot of question marks. So Zinchenko was out, so you see Kiwer playing that role, right? Jakub Kiwer, and Benjamin White actually came in as the second centre back because Saliba was injured as well. And Thomas Partey, while played as a right back, he started as a right back. If you look at the average touches, right, he was fairly central. He was almost close to Jorginho. So he was more of an inverted right back. And Kivor, if you look at Kivor, he stayed back. So there was three at the back, right? Benjamin White, Gabriel as and Kivor. And you had Partey and Zinchenko, Jorginho play that role of midfield pivot. You had Zaka who stayed back a bit more, and then you had Trossard, Jesus, Odegaard, and Saka. Again, Saka was the most attacking player that day, and I think he ended the match with a goal, and he was subbed a bit early, but he was playing really, really well, right? So what is this going to do for us is that we have two opportunities now. Either we are going to continue with the 4-3-3, or we are going to move to a similar shape where we can accommodate both Rice as well as Party, right? This might vary a bit depending on the matches that we are in. Right? I feel when it comes to home games, we are going to continue playing a bit of that 4-3-3. Right? No respect. We will. That's where I expect Havers to start most of the matches. But and for the time being, I expect Party to start at least, because I don't think Rice is completely fit yet. He came in very late. He's still getting used to the system. Right? He played yesterday. He was okay. He was not exceptional, but he was okay. He's getting into that rhythm. Right? But Party has been extremely, extremely, extremely good in the entire preseason. So first home matches, I expect a midfield of Odegaard, Party, and Havers, or Rice if you want to defend a bit. But home games, I definitely feel that there's a strong probability that Havers comes in. Even if Trossard comes in, there's a strong probability that we retain. So what might happen is if you look at the 34 position in this match, Zaka played deep. But what I expect to happen is Odegaard will mirror that on the other side. Odegaard is gonna play deep, and Havertz is going to take a similar role up front, closer to Martinelli, or almost up front as well. Right? So this is my understanding of how things are happening, or how we can expect Arsenal to shape up. Because entire preseason there has been a lot of changes, and this is when we'll get into the segue into our Barcelona match, right? To give us a bit more idea as to how Arsenal is shaping up. Now, what has happened in in the match in Barcelona? I'm picking up Barcelona because fairly most of our, I think, first 11 played in that match, except Martinelli, that you had Trossard playing for him, and the fact that it started off fairly as a comfortable 4-3-3, right? And Thomas Partey was in the middle, Kai and Odegaard flanked him, and then you had Saka, Jesus, and Trossard, right, instead of Martinelli. A couple of things at the back, what changed was generally you see a lot of inverted for fullback. Arsenal played a lot of inverted fullbacks last season. That's the reason while Ben White was given some freedom to overlap, to give assist. There's not a lot of attacking numbers coming from both the fullbacks, Zinchenko or Ben White. But if you look at this graph, you see suddenly both Timber was playing as a left back. He's been playing left back for the last three matches, so I expect him to start picking up that role because Zinchenko is yet to come back from preseason, right? So first 3-4 matches, I think Timber is going to start as a left back. That also means that Ben White is secured, right? And both of them are playing fairly wide, and this is going to be interesting because this makes things a bit more attractive for them as FPL assets compared to last season, because there's a strong probability that they start getting involved in the attack now. Now, while Havertz plays that number 8 role, if you look at the graph, and this graph has been taken by from Harvey Grayson, who's an Arsenal analyst, his YouTube channel. He's a very good Arsenal analyst. Do have a look at his channel because he'll also give you a bit more in detail the ideas about how we play or if we are trying to play, right? And you see Trossard is falling deep, Havertz is going flanking up wide, right? So even if Havertz plays that deeper LCM 8 role, I think his role is very interesting from FPL point of view because you see someone like Trossard, he's dropping deep and he's allowing Havertz to go up front a lot, right? And Odegaard was the guy who was continuing his similar role, Party continuing this similar role, and Saka stayed up front. Saka and Jesus stayed up, right? So this for me is going to be fairly closer to how we are going to start this season with. Right? You might have Trossard, you might have Martinelli, but everything else should remain same, right? And that's the reason we wanted you guys to have a look at this graph because this will give you some idea as to where things will start. If you ask me today what is going to be the lineup for us, right? I think this is more or less the lineup, except Martinelli and Trossard. That's where I'm still 50-50 because Jesus is now injured. And if with Jesus injury, I think it's easier for Trossard to just go central and Martinelli to play that, left wing role. Right? Now, we've talked a lot about formations, right? Uh, a lot about Arsenal's footballing style, etc., etc. Now let's get back to FPL. Right? How does it affect us? What are some of the questions that we have seen a lot? A lot of people have been pinging us saying, "Hey, what do you expect from this?" Right? So we'll start with Saka's overperformance with respect to XG. Right? What do you think, Aditya? Before, because I'm going to be a biased Arsenal fan, right? What is your thought?
Over performance is just merely that you use just to say that he's overperforming. I mean, annoyed fans and non-Arsenal fans will only get that debate because for Arsenal fans that's a goal, so they are not going to even dwell on it more. If it will come down is basically if he shoots or if he scores from a place the XG is relevant to one, then obviously it is fine. But other than that, I'm not going to say anything more. Will it risk come down? I will have to ask him maybe to take better shots so that it actually goes.
So my own thoughts are fairly similar, right? If when I looked at his XG, actually his XG performance was by 2, which I thought was not very high. His XA data to assist, right, was extremely strong. I think he had an XA of around 7 and his assist was around 11, right? And that's why people had an over XGI was like, hey, Saka is overperforming. I feel as a player, he's a player who keeps getting better every year. He's a tremendous potential asset. I think he's after a long, long time. I think we have got a player who's close to a world class potential, who can become a world class player. He's not there yet, but who can become. And that's one of the reasons I do feel that when we talk about XG, right, there's always a tendency, especially in FPL community, that everyone gets down to the mean, right? So if someone is a top player, they still expect that player to come down and start performing at an average level. For me, XG is a metric which is an average of all the players' shots, right? So I don't expect Saka to come down, start performing as per XG. But XA is interesting, right? Because XA is extremely high. It might be, I've not seen where his assist went, but I'm assuming some of it went to Odegaard, and that is the reason of that overperformance. So if it does not happen, what will happen is something we have to see. But from a purely XG point of view, I think Saka will continue that trend. Is my thought as things stand today. Right. The second point we wanted to discuss was about Havertz and Jesus. Right. Obviously, we now have a news that Jesus is expected to miss the first match. He should be in the squad for the Palace match, even if he doesn't start. Right. Uh, I do expect Jesus to benefit a lot out of Kai Havertz because of his movements. Because I think people talk a lot about, again when we talk about XG, right? People are talk a lot about how Jesus underperforms his XG, but I think he gets crowded out a lot. So he gets a lot of his shots blocked by the defenders, and that is primarily because most of the time he's the lone player for us in the box, right? Saka and Martinelli play fairly wide, and they get into good positions when we go on counter when Jesus is deeper. But when Jesus is in the box, he's generally the only person in the box. With Kai Havertz movements, I expect two players now to get into box, right? So the defender cannot get converge upon Jesus. They also have to take care of Kai. So I do feel that it will give Jesus better quality opportunities to take, and ideally his convergence should increase. If not goals, I also feel that it also means that when Jesus, vacates the space, it will give Havertz an opportunity to run into the box, and maybe Jesus can get some assists as well by giving him some passes. Right. Overall, I feel that there's a lot of synergy between the two which can happen, but I don't expect it to come immediately because both have not played a lot of minutes together, at least in the preseason. So these are something that we are going to see over eventually across the season. Right. The third question that keep seeing is X minutes of Martinelli. Right. It is a dicey question. Right. I think we are a bit happy there because Jesus is out for the first two matches, and ideally that should mean that all these three players will start. But at the same time, if I have to say that once Jesus is back, who's going to affect it most? Logically, to me, I feel Kai is going to get affected most because he doesn't seem to be a player who can play 90 minutes in this new position, right? So around 60-65 minute, I expect him to get subbed, and between him and Martinelli, I expect him to get subbed first. So in my mind, Trossard is going to come in for Havertz, and he has played that position a bit in the preseason, and logically he plays that position really, really well. Has all the qualities, fairly attacking, right? So in my mind, he's going to affect Havertz more than Martinelli, but we get to know after 2-3 matches, so that makes things a bit easier for us, thankfully. Right now, overall, if you look at Arsenal last season, a lot of questions were asked about why did we crumble, right? And most of the answers were around depth and what Arsenal has gone and done. First thing is they have added a lot of depth to most of the positions now. Right? We have good quality players across positions, and that is the reason I feel there will be rotation impact this season. Last season we were lucky; we got 90 minutes of Saka, 90 minutes of Jesus, 85 minutes Jesus, 80 minutes Martinelli. Right. This season we are and players like White, Zinchenko, right, all got a lot of minutes. This season we have to get into Champions League, play Champions League soon, right? So we have got good quality players, and there is going to be a lot of rotation. Something that we have to now start accepting as Arsenal fans as well as FPL managers, right? Attack or defense, I think it will be both, but I do feel defense is something that we need to look at a bit more clearly. This so far we have been only talking Arsenal attack, right? I also want to talk a bit on Arsenal defense. I think Timber and White are going to be our starting fullbacks for some time, for the next 4 weeks at least, 4 5 weeks till the first international break, till Zinchenko comes back, settles in, right? Because uh, Timber is such a versatile player, like we were discussing. He gives us a lot of options, both as an inverted fullback as well as as an overlapping one. So I expect this duo to continue, and that also means that Gabriel and Saliba will also continue. But what might happen is when we move to that three at the back position, someone will get impacted. It can be White, it can be Timber, right? Some of these fullbacks will be impacted, and that is one reason I'm a bit more skeptical. Also, with respect to White, we'll not see him play 90 minutes anymore because now we have seen that Tomiyasu is now fit. Also, Timber can someday move to right back position, which is actually his first position, right? So White is under risk. He's already 5.5. He's already 5.5 million, correct? A bit overpriced, right? So it's going to be impacted. It's going to impact all the fullbacks. I think Saliba and Gabriel are the most nailed on defenders for us, defensive assets from FPL point of view. So if you want to go one defender, I would say pick one of these two. I like Gabriel more because he brings a bit of attacking impetus from corner set pieces, etc. But he does not convert a lot, so the difference might be minuscule. It's just a matter of who you want to go with, right? Triple attack or attack and defense, as we were discussing at home, we do concede. Also, my entire thought of Arsenal really going starting really strong has gone away looking at the preseason, because I think Arteta has done a lot of mix and match. He's tried out multiple things, various build-up styles, etc., throughout the preseason. Also, looking at them yesterday, I could sense that this team is going to take some time to settle down. I do think, given the fixtures, the first three fixtures are slightly easier for us, and that gives us the opportunity to hopefully take all the points while settling down. But I don't expect that 3 plus XG Arsenal at home anytime soon, at least not for the first 3 4 matches, right? So that also means that triple attack might not be the best, wisest decision. Double attack might be the way to go. I'm not as convinced of our defense as well, because I think as we adjust, as we try to put a bit more impetus on attack, we are conceding every time. Right. So currently, if you ask me, I'm on double attack because Jesus is out, and I'm not fairly keen on our defense, despite the fact that the first 3 matches look good at least. Right. Attackers, we have definitely nailed, ranked. Ramsdale or Raya. Raya is a name which is getting linked a lot with us, and I think we are in discussions with Brentford for him. Tremendous goalkeeper. I think he was the best goalkeeper for of the league last season. 154 shots saved. Obviously, he's not expected to do that at Arsenal. Uh, Raya should be the first keeper for us. I've heard that we have offered Raya the first goalkeeper slot to begin with, and that's the reason he's considering to come to Arsenal. But the major issue is this transfer is already delayed a lot, and that's one reason Ramsdale should have a good start to the season. Right, he has 3 easier fixtures, and if he plays 3 matches really well, it will be very difficult for Arteta to drop him. Raya might have to start with Champions League matches, and then we see how where it goes. But ideally, if you ask me, FPL wise, I'm more gung ho on our attackers and less on defenders, including the goalkeeper. Once the fact that we now have a transfer possibility of Raya, right? Okay, we have spoken a lot. I've spoken a lot. Aditya, any thoughts from these discussion points? Anything you want to
Yeah,
add?
it was like I was sitting in some lecture. So, I mean, other than that, one good thing which I wanted to also bring up, and also you spoke, is that how Arsenal will rather look to emphasize more of their attack rather than defending. So, which is a good point, because I think even a lot of other teams are also going to try and do the same. Obviously, just straight comparison I would get is United, because even we let in a lot of goals in the preseason, and because both of these teams are kind of comparable, because they're out of their transition phase of building up a team, they're gone to the next step, so they're going to kind of implement the ideology. I mean, both the managers what they want, and so that's the reason even I was a bit hesitant of getting an Arsenal defender, but at 5 million bracket and that fixtures is kind of making everyone think maybe double attack, and a defender for that price is definitely, something that should be considered. So, yes, I mean, it's a good point that you got in that don't be like uh, under the impression that they're going to keep clean sheets every game, but no, they're going to like concede some or stupid, or it will be a stupid or goal to concede one goal that will just get your points away. But obviously, they will emphasize more in their attack. The top six, seven teams are obviously going to play in the front foot. Obviously, we've got different managers now, and a lot of other teams are also shipping in goals. That's like Liverpool also not defending that well, but they're looking good in terms of attack. Little bit here and there, but every other team also. I mean, City also a little bit here and there, but that's the way they play generally the preseason and all. So yeah, I mean that's one thing, and I'm a bit surprised of Raya. Like all of a sudden that news came out of it. I mean, a bit, little bit put me off that, but kind of makes sense. Obviously, when you're competing in so many competitions, you need a good core of goalkeepers because everybody may have. I mean, everyone goes through a bad phase and a good phase in terms of their performances. So you obviously will need someone also to step up in those times. So that makes sense. Fullbacks is something I was a bit confused. So I'll just put it up this way: if once Zinchenko is back and let's say he's fit and he slowly starts getting integrated, so you think he's going to straight slot into the left slot, like
Uh,
straight in?
I'm not as confident. I do feel Timber brings fairly similar qualities. He's obviously not as great from a technical passing point of view. It all depends on how well our attack clicks, right? If Howard's and Howard's party or Rice, whichever is the combination of Odegaard, that that attack combo clicks, then I think Timber is going to be the man because he has to cover up a lot of Howard's space who's emptied, right? If you're playing Havertz, it means that someone has to ensure that defensively we are strong, and especially with Party, Party is not as mobile as Rice, right? So we do need Party and Timber, right? I expect that combo to happen, right? But if we are playing Declan Rice as left LCM 8 in that role, like he played yesterday, then I do feel the entire reasoning goes away, and there's a strong possibility that Zinchenko comes in, right? Especially because bringing in Declan Rice instead of um, Havertz might take away a bit of that attacking impetus, and Zinchenko has really helped us in attack last season, right? So at least for the first 4 5 weeks, I expect Timber to come in and start because of the fact that Zinchenko is yet to come back to us for preseason. He's injured. He had a baby yesterday. Congratulations to Zinchenko in case he's listening or watching us. But I do expect it will take some time for him to come back into the season, right? So we have a couple of questions here I can see.
I will answer
One
one
is,
question straight away
yeah,
based on
yeah,
based if so. It's like when you go to any class, maybe in your college or your school and all, and you attend a lecture and you get you grasp the information, and then when somebody asks a doubt, you feel like,
yeah,
what, I know the answer. Why was he sleeping or something? But anyways, looks like Nehal joined a bit late, so I'm going to
sure,
pin that question is that what to pick between Martinelli, Havertz, and Trossard. If I'm going to guess, that's Martinelli. That's the answer. If Sankalp
yeah.
begs to differ, then I'm in trouble.
No, no, I completely agree. I mean, at least to begin with, it has to be Martinelli. That's my thought as things stand today. Right. The second question that I can see from Sivanand is 100 million Rice on bench. I don't expect it to be long term. For sure, I expect him to be a key player for us across the season. But it's a fact that players take time to adjust. I think people don't realize the difference in the football style between a West Ham and Arsenal, right? Forget the level and class and the ambition, etc., etc. It's just a two different style. Right? Declan Rice is so much used to sitting back deep, playing number 6 or number 8 role. Right? This is going to be very different because he's to play in a different part of the pitch altogether for 60 65 minutes, right? So it's different, it's difficult. We have seen him play well yesterday. I think he picked up some good moments with Martinelli. Sometimes he underlapped, sometimes he overlapped as well. But it is not going to be an easy ride, at least for the first 3 4 matches. So that's the reason, given the fact that we see Party in such a good form. and the fact that we have home matches is why I'm more certain on Partey, Havertz, and Odegaard combination, at least for the first three matches, but not over the season for sure.
Yeah, so we have two more questions from Nehal. I think one was we did discuss this about Havertz as forward. You pretty much kind of ruled it out. And so I think Neil, you can just kind of scroll back. We did cover this a bit, and and about this, yeah, I wanted to actually get this up. Nketiah, I think you're kind of more or less inclined towards Trossard playing as the striker, or maybe kind of a false nine-ish, scamish player. But why not
Yeah.
Nketiah? Do you think Arteta might play like the traditional striker sort of, who can generally who's used to playing there more or less?
So it's possible that we do that, right? I don't rule it out. I'm a Eddie fan. A lot of Arsenal fans are not, right? So I really like Eddie Nketiah, and I feel that he has a lot of potential, which unfortunately is difficult to realize because of the fact that he has to play like 5 minutes a match, right? But the truth is that Trossard looks far more in form, and he had a good match yesterday. So that's the reason I'm slightly, dicey. I want to look at Community Shield before confirming, because I think Community Shield will mirror our Game Week 1 squad. But Martinelli, even with Nketiah starting forward, that is one thing that a lot of people keep talking about. I see a lot of FPL accounts saying, hey, Martinelli gets impacted with Eddie Nketiah. They make sweeping statements like that because 6 matches and Martinelli did not give a single assist, etc. Right? See, these are the 6 matches. Right? These are the 6 matches. Second is during that time we played with fairly strong teams. We've played against Brighton away, we played West Ham home, we played Newcastle at home, which was a really tough 0-0 match. We played Tottenham away, United at home, and then City. Everton away, Brentford at home, and City. Right, these are the 6 matches in questions. Right, so we were in a very very strong fixture run at that point of time. Right, and Martinelli was extremely well marked during some of those matches. I'm not saying that there was no correlation. Obviously, obviously Nketiah, unlike Jesus, likes to take those central positions. He does not give it off to Martinelli. But if I look at yesterday's match, I think Martinelli could have scored 2 goals with Eddie Nketiah on pitch, and they both were syncing, vibing really well, right? So I would say the sample size is too low for us to make such sweeping remarks. Overall, I trust the quality of the player, and the fixtures are such that we can take that risk. Yes, there's a minor risk. I feel it's a minor one, but overall, I feel you can take that risk given the fact that these are fixtures, and I feel that it's a bit of a generalization to think that Eddie and Martinelli won't get along together.
Yes, I think with that being said, we've covered everything with respect to Arsenal. We did kind of answer a few questions here and there, and we answered, I think, very, very, maybe say, highly relevant questions towards the end here, which is right up on screen. And I'm kind of clear with regards to Arsenal. With this an hour of discussion with Sankalp has more or less helped me pick the right Arsenal players as of now, as of today, because Community Shield will give us much better answers regarding these questions which are up here, and maybe on Raya and all, if the transfer happens and all. So I think with that being said, that brings us to the end of this stream or episode. Hope everyone enjoyed, had a good time listening to it on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all. We'll be back in the next few days with the next couple of team previews before we get closer to game week 1. So we'll be covering Liverpool, Man City, United, Spurs, and Chelsea over the next few days. So, uh, do drop us a subscription here on YouTube too, and get notified with our upcoming schedule and the streams. And last but not the least, I would like to thank Samkul for taking out time, doing his research, doing his homework, and giving us a comprehensive dive with regards to Arsenal.
Cool, thank you. I think it was a fun part, and even preparing it for it made me think a lot about how Arsenal is progressing as well. Made me change a bit of my own bias with respect to Arsenal assets, and I think hopefully it will help me FPL wise as well.
Yes. So with that being said, we wind up with this episode or stream, and we will see you all folks in the next few days. with the next couple of streams and the next couple of teams. Till then, enjoy your tinkering.